Welcome to Epicurus of Samos, the online YouTube channel devoted to the philosophical school of thought called Epicureanism. We are devoted to enhancing the well-being of all humanity through these philosophical principles. If you like what I'm doing here and you want to improve your life, overcome the fear of death, or create a paradigm that is devoted to your own happiness and well-being, click on the link below, join my Patreon, and get my free guide, How to Overcome the Fear of Death, the Epicurean Solution. Today we're going to be talking about Epicurus versus Paul. We're going to compare these two figures, the pros and cons of each, and which one will help us live a more practical life dealing with our suffering in the here and now. Epicurus and the Apostle Paul, representing Epicureanism and Christian theology, respectively, offer distinct perspectives on human psychology and the approach to suffering. Epicurus' philosophy, centered around attaining happiness and tranquility in the here and now, provides a more comprehensive psychological framework, particularly when contrasted with Paul's apocalyptic views, which tend toward a more pessimistic outlook. So, this does not mean that Christianity has no benefits of any kind. This is simply comparing the views of Paul and Epicurus in the here and now. Understanding the nature of pleasure and pain according to Epicurus. Ataraxia and aponia. Epicurus introduced the concepts of ataraxia, which mean tranquility, and aponia, meaning the absence of pain, as the ultimate goals of life. His psychological framework recognizes the interplay between pleasure and pain, emphasizing the importance of minimizing unnecessary desires to achieve mental peace. Now, analysis of desires. There are categories. Epicurus categorized desires into natural and necessary, natural but not necessary, and neither natural nor necessary. By classifying desires, he provided a psychological tool for individuals to evaluate and prioritize their needs, contributing to a more conscious and deliberate approach to life. Epicurus' thoughts include also the absence of the fear of death. So Epicurus rationalizes fear. He argued that the fear of death is irrational, since death marks the end of consciousness, and there is no awareness of pain after death. This rational approach to mortality can alleviate existential anxiety, offering individuals a psychological strategy to confront the inevitability of death without succumbing to unnecessary fear. Now, we have our comparison with the Apostle Paul. In terms of his theological perspective on suffering, redemption through suffering, Paul's teachings often frame suffering as part of the human experience, with the possibility of redemption through faith in Jesus. However, Paul's views are inherently apocalyptic, which suggests a future divine intervention that colors the present experience of suffering with a sense of foreboding. So it will be dealt with in the future. It will be dealt with in the second coming, or it will be dealt with in death. And so there's little hope for the here and now. That's not the focus. Paul also talks about the reliance on divine intervention in terms of submitting to God's will. Paul emphasizes the importance of submitting to God, viewing suffering as a test or a means through which individuals can grow spiritually. The apocalyptic nature of Paul's views introduce a sense of pessimism, as the present suffering is often perceived as a precursor to a future divine resolution. So, Epicurus provides practical strategies for minimizing the unnecessary pain and maximizing tranquility by addressing desires and fears directly. His philosophy offers individuals tools for understanding and navigating suffering within a more tangible and actionable framework. Autonomy and rationality. Epicureanism places a strong emphasis on individual autonomy and rational decision making. By encouraging individuals to critically evaluate their desires and fears, Epicurus fosters a sense of agency, empowering individuals to actively shape their psychological responses to suffering. He also focuses on immediate experience. Epicurean philosophy places a significant focus on the immediate experience of pleasure and pain in the present life, allowing individuals to develop a psychological resilience that is anchored in their current reality rather than a future oriented apocalyptic approach. So, again, I want to highlight Epicurus offers practical strategies for dealing with suffering in the present moment. He offers autonomy and rationality. In other words, it's up to us to deal with our problems in the here and now and focus on immediate experience. We're not saying, we're not just focusing on, it'll get better later. We're trying to deal with the problems right now. Paul, on the other hand, does have some benefits even in the here and now, whether you believe, but it only requires that you believe in Paul's theology. So it's really mostly beneficial to Christians, but there are advantages. Paul's teaching emphasizes the redemptive power of suffering within a Christian framework. According to New Testament theology, which is heavily influenced by Paul in every way, suffering is not purposeless. Rather, it is seen as a transformative experience that can lead to spiritual growth and a deeper relationship with God. He also offers community support. Paul's psychological framework places importance on the Christian community as a source of support during times of suffering. You have the church as the body of Christ to lean on, to lean on, and to share your burdens, support one another, love your neighbor as yourself, and so people find solace in collective faith. And lastly, we have Paul's teachings, which provide believers an eternal perspective on suffering. The Christian concept of an afterlife and the promise of eternal joy offers reassurance that the present suffering is temporary in the grander scheme of salvation history. Again, these only come if you actually believe, but they are great benefits that have helped me in many ways. Whilst Paul's psychology has these advantages, it's important to note that the applicability and the effectiveness of these perspectives vary based on people's beliefs, their cultural contexts, and personal experiences. In essence, while both Epicurus and Paul offer insights into the human experience of suffering, Epicureanism's focus on rationality, practical strategies, and an immediate understanding of pleasure and pain allows for a more optimistic and progressive psychological approach. Paul's apocalyptic views introduce a sense of pessimism, emphasizing the redemptive nature of suffering in a future divine context rather than fostering a pragmatic and proactive approach to the challenges in the present, rather in the here and now. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have liked and enjoyed today's presentation of Epicurus versus Paul. If you want to grow deeper in your wisdom and live out the philosophy of Epicureanism, Join my online school of Epicurean thought. Just click on the link below on Patreon, and you can join the free version or the paid version. Whichever one you join, you'll get a free guide on how to overcome the fear of death. If you join the paid version, you will get exclusive content, downloadable resources, and a community feature where we can grow in our love of wisdom together. I hope that this lesson has a has been practical in your daily living. I hope to see you soon.